How you guys doing? Welcome. So I have other videos I've actually recorded. I haven't uploaded because I still need to edit them, and I'll probably upload them relatively soon. And some of those will kind of hit on the niche topic that I'm going to try to kind of stick to. For the most part, the name of the channel, you'll be all right. Walk it off, right? The reason I say that is solely based on the fact that after so much conversation with people, one thing you realize is a lot of people live their life, make their decisions, life decisions, all kinds of stuff solely based on emotionalism, right? They try to rationalize, which we all know, something you can't do solely based on emotion. Emotions are, by definition, irrational oftentimes. All right, we don't make our best decisions when we're sad or mad or anything in between. And we also need to distinguish the fact that, I'll get to my main point, but we need to distinguish the fact that feelings and emotions are two separate things, right? On one hand, your emotions are something usually, especially in psychology, are something that you usually experience in a span of a couple seconds for the most part. You know, it's not something that lasts very long. Feelings then comes in and takes over, where feelings is, to a certain degree, the conscious mind decides, right? You as a person, you decide to feel some type of way about whatever it is that's afflicting you. So the reason I bring all of that up is in the wake of the tragedies that's going on in like the last couple of weeks, especially with the recent shooting in Texas, right, in the elementary school. You have a lot of people kind of just jumping on social media, and you've heard it all before, right? The emotional responses of everything, and I get it. It's a very emotional thing to go through, right? I'm not downplaying that aspect of it. I mean, it's a tragedy. And again, give yourself some time to grieve, give yourself some time to feel about it some type of way. But you cannot make decisions based on how you feel. You cannot expect others to make decisions on how you feel as well, right? You can't do that. If you do it for yourself, you're kind of digging yourself into a hole, and you can't expect somebody else to come in and acquiesce to your life as if your feelings matter above everyone else, right? Like I said, obviously the tragedies are exactly that, tragedies. There are monsters in the world, right? Trust me, I know, right? I worked with them for a long time, for many hours. You know, a lot of these monsters that people like to forget about. It's what happened is like nearly unspeakable, and it's frustrating, it's upsetting for me, especially only because, again, you guys may know or may not know, I personally don't have any kids, right? So a lot of people say, oh, well, that's why you feel some type of way, because you don't have kids, or it'd be different if you had kids. And honestly, no, it wouldn't, because people who know me know that if someone's in danger, in trouble, physically, whatever the trouble is, right, I often run towards them, you know, if they need help. I'll be the first to, reach out and lend a hand if needed, right? My whole, like, growing up, that's all I ever did. And, you know, people around me can vouch for that, is I tried to defend and stick up for the little guys. For those that were often defenseless, for those that didn't have a voice or felt that they didn't have a voice, for those that were most in danger, right? I feel a sense of responsibility because of that, because there were times in my childhood where I wanted that protector, right? So it's really frustrating when you hear the news and you say this kid, he's 18, I mean, considered an adult, but mentally he wasn't there. This kid went out and took out his anger and frustration, other unfounded, on children, defenseless, right? It's monstrous. It's like, it's completely just, I don't know how way to describe it other than monstrous, right? Despicable. It's just, they're defenseless. And what drives somebody to do that? Commit an act of violence. We have to, you have to tell, be able to tell the difference between that, what drives somebody to commit violence or acts, like this, and also what why they target groups or certain groups over others. Part of this video is going to be to, like I said, take a step back, get your emotions out of it, right? Because they are no good to you when making rational decisions, right? I'll be the first to say that. And I've learned that, right? I'm not here to say, oh, I only make rational decisions. I found myself, being the victim of my own decisions because I've made decisions solely based on emotionalism. And I pay the consequences to it. So in making this video, I want to be able to analyze this, have proper discourse within regards to like what's going on, because there's so much misinformation, right? A lot of people like to say, well, you have like fake news on this side, right? CNN and ABC, whatever it is, right? And then on the other side, like Fox News, whatever your platform of news or news outlet is, both of them, and what people don't understand and like to forget is that neither is completely and genuinely honest with their demographic. That's always going to be the case. That's always has been the case and continues to be the case, and we see it now. The other point I want to make is that you need to know, right, that propaganda is a two-way street, right? People on the left like to say, because events like this get politicized, people on the left like to say, oh, well, it's propaganda from the right, or it's so-and-so from the right, or this and this and that, right? And people on the right like to say the same thing about the other side, all right? It's propaganda, it's propaganda, it's propaganda. It's a two-way street. And depending on what side you're on, right, you create yourself in an echo chamber, I think I've said it before, with people that you have this like-mindedness to, right? And anyone who disagrees, you have like this emotional response to be like, oh, I hate you, or whatever the case is, because you feel some type of way, or because you think some type of way. Personally, I don't. And this is why I personally like to have discourse with people. Some people don't like it. Some people will run away from it. I know plenty of people like that. People who say, oh, I don't like having discourse because it makes me feel some type of way. I've seen that in my personal life. People will tell you that. And that's what I want to open everything up to, is you have to be able, regardless of where you stand, you have to be able to sit down and have conversations without getting your emotions involved. Okay? This is why we're at where we are, is because everybody wants to acquiesce to everybody's feelings and feel good, and nobody should be offended, and we should live in this paradise, in constant euphoria, and everything should be happy-go-lucky. It sounds fantastic, but that's not reality. Okay? Reality is that whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, there will always be those that are selfish and evil and those that are not. Okay, that is the reality, regardless of how you feel about it. How you feel about something, right, does not determine reality. It doesn't, right? The world does not owe you understanding. Okay, so getting on topic, right? Like I said, what happened is monstrous. my sentiment towards it is genuine, right? Because I'm sure you guys may have seen my post in previously on my Facebook, or my Instagram, where I posted something of me in the range practicing, and my quote was, practicing, right? Because the good guys aren't the only ones doing so, right? I realize that there are monsters out in the world. A lot of people like to forget about it. But when you do certain jobs, you realize tragedies occur every day, right? And that's why you have people who do these jobs, like law enforcement, like military, like me, who worked for the federal prison system, right? These things happen. You're not going to stop it from happening, no matter how many laws you put under the sun, right? You can shield everybody in a bubble, and there will still be things happen. What I see a lot of on social media right now, specifically, is a lot of emotionalism. And like I said, I understand it, right? I understand how people feel, the emotions that are involved, and all that. And not belittling that, right? I felt some type of way about it. I've suffered through my own fair share of tragedies, right, growing up. The fact of the matter is that we need to look at reality. We need to look at statistics. We need to look at what actually is instead of what should be, right? Because we need to operate in reality. We cannot continue to operate in what should be. I mean, we can work towards that, right? We could strive for that. We can make plans for it, but we have to live in the here and now. We have to, right? Because if not, then all you are is hoping, right? And you can dream about stuff and hope and have faith in whatever it is you want, but if you don't work towards it, you're not going to get there, okay? So we need to live in the here and now. My entire social media, and like I said, difference of opinions, I respect. I respect the passion that people feel for what happened. But passion without proper information or with false information is dubious and inconsequential, right? Because you do see a lot of emotion and a lot of passion from people saying, oh, the first thing to go to, especially politicians and the news, is guns, right? That the reason this happened is and continues to happen and has happened is because of guns. And that honestly could not be further from the truth. I know that you might not like that. I know that might make you feel some type of way, but you need to look at the facts. You need to look at reality, right? Because the truth is that guns are not the cause for tragedies like this, right? It just so happens to be, quote unquote, the weapon of choice, right? Like you see a lot of on social media about the fact that guns and assault weapons and assault rifles, or whatever it is you want to refer to them as, contribute to all these mass shootings or tragedies, right? That this violence somehow stems from that. And I'm gonna give you some statistics, and I'll be able to link them, when I upload this video, so that you guys can have that for reference as well. Like I said, I'm not just pulling stuff out of thin air. Truth of the matter is that guns save more people than don't. Okay? I believe the number is between 92 or 94%, right, of incidences involving a gun are 94% of them usually involve the saving of a life. Much more so, right? The 6% involve somebody attacking. Well, 94% of them involve somebody defending, right? Especially in self-defense. I think the number is of instances in the U.S. is well in the millions of instances of reported to law enforcement about instances where there was an incident involved and somebody used the gun to defend themselves, right? You're talking about millions of lives saved every year by a weapon. Okay, those statistics obviously involve law enforcement and all that stuff. Less than 5%, right, account for mass casualties, like what we just saw. Okay, so when people say this thing about, oh, you know, the issue of guns, no, because the fact of the matter, right, statistics show that's not the case, right? Guns help more and save more lives than anything else, right? There's a reason why when there's a perpetrator, you call the police to help alleviate the issue or solve it for you. Believe me when I say that if police here did not have a weapon, they would not be as effective at deterring it, right? The other thing is, for example, you know, it only happens in the U.S. That mass casualties like this only happen in the U.S. If you compare, just as an example, right, specifically involving guns, that's not the case. Again, and I'll leave the stats below. If you were to rank what we would otherwise call first world countries in regards to mass casualties and incidents of mass casualties, the U.S. ranks number 83 out of all of them. Okay, not number one, not top 10 or top 50. We're talking 83, right? Now, mind you, a lot of those instances involve knives, explosives, vehicles, and other weapons that people use, right? Which tells you, again, the guns are not the issue, because there are places like that don't have guns. They're not easily available. And these tragedies still occur, right? The other is people saying, oh, we need stricter gun laws. Again, statistics, reality, right? We need to operate in reality. Reality tells us that does not work. How you feel about that, again, doesn't matter, because that is not true. We know that the vast majority in the U.S. of shootings, right, mass shooters, these incidences occur in gun-free zones for the most part. Again, statistically, that's where they occur, where there's less of a deterrence or occurrence of violence, right? For somebody who studies criminal justice, we know this. We know that criminals, these monsters, choose places that are going to present the least amount of resistance, depending on what they're trying to accomplish. We know that if you held a criminal trying to do the same thing, right, in one school, like he just did, and there's nobody there to defend those kids, right, to defend that small population, and you took another school and had somebody there, right, people with perhaps officers, whatever the case is, right, walking around security, that monster is going to choose the one that has less offenses. We know that, again, crime stats, we know this, right? I always bring up the point, and I don't understand why it eludes people. People say more gun laws, more gun laws, more gun laws, more gun laws. If you were to tell me there's all these gun laws, you can no longer purchase any of this, right? Law abiding, you say, well, I'm not a criminal. I don't want to break these laws. So what am I going to do as someone who is law abiding? Not purchase them, right? For example, we have drugs that are illegal. So for the most part, most people don't go out and purchase drugs because they're bad, they're illegal. I'm not a criminal, I'm not this. However, we know that laws don't stop monsters. They don't stop criminals. Prime example, all you have to do is look south of the border. right? In Mexico, it is illegal for its citizens to own firearms like we do here in the US, right? It is illegal for them to defend themselves. So just think about that, and then think about all the cartel violence that occurs on a continuous basis. And tell me that in the US, we have more mass casualties than them, because we're allowed to have weapons. Okay? Areas in Mexico where people have risen up who said F you to their government and said, we're going to defend ourselves and we're going to have our weapons and we're going to buy this, whatever it is you want, because you're not protecting us. Those places are a lot safer. I wonder why, right? Because those cartels are going to be like, well, why am I going to go mess with them when I can mess over here? These people can't defend themselves, right? We see that happen all over the world. It's not something new. So that, again, that tells you that those laws don't work. Because if in Mexico those laws worked, cartel wouldn't own guns. Why? Because they'd be like, oh, it's illegal. I'm not supposed to own this. But they do. Why? Because they are criminals. Because they're not going to listen to your laws. Right? Again, this is all empirical data. We're not making things up in order to feel or to meet the standards of some sort of narrative we're trying to create. We need to think logically. My idea is solely based on some of the arguments that I've seen online, right? Especially the gun issue. Do I think it's a gun issue? Obviously, everything that I've said and the ranting that I've done, no, I don't think it's a gun issue whatsoever, right? We look at the kids. Now we're gonna get, so you guys can often understand a lot of why things happen. If you look at the kid, the 18-year-old, I'm not gonna say his name, who committed this terrible act, you know, it's for the most part unclear as to how he was able to purchase the rifles and the alleged pistol, because allegedly he had a pistol. The reason I say that is because you hear it all over the news, right? Is he purchased these two rifles. Then he's 18, how did he, 18-year-old, go and buy these assault weapons, right? His grandpa, right? Because remember, he shot his grandma prior to going to the school. His grandpa was interviewed, and his grandpa, right, said, I don't understand how he was able to purchase these weapons, because he is a registered felon in the state. Okay, so how he was able to do it, it's unclear. The other thing is, this dude was completely troubled, right? They did an interview with some of his classmates and people that knew him, and his classmates said it consistently. He showed up to school with scars on his face a lot of times, to his high school with scars on his face. And his friends would ask him, people would ask him, like, what happened? You know, are you okay? And his answer was, he did them himself because it was cool, because he thought he looked cool, right? That there should tell you something that points to the fact that this isn't a gun issue. This kid was troubled, right? So much so that for the last, I believe, few months, he had been on various social media talking about what it is he was going to do. Even prior to that, you know, these cries for help. He was attention seeking. He was looking for validation on social media, amongst others. And we see this a lot of times with many criminals, is that they're ousted by those around him, right? Like, his social media was literally filled with, you know, instances of like animal abuse, you know, him with weapons and all that stuff. Mind you, he had all this stuff, right? He did all these things prior to his 18th birthday. So again, how he was able to get a lot of this stuff, people are like, I don't know. Obviously, it wasn't legally, right? His grandpa also said in the interview that he doesn't understand how he was able to make it to the school, to that elementary school, because it's not like he walked there, right? There's that picture of the car, his vehicle he was in, that was rolled over. He was there for 30 minutes. It's dumbfounding to me that nobody did anything during that time. Now, mind you, if he presented a threat and there was somebody there who could protect, all this stuff wouldn't have happened, right? For a lot of people that are against guns, you know who stopped him? A BORTAC member from the CBP. You know how he stopped him? With the firearm, right? That was a good guy with a gun. That's what stopped the tragedy. Because had it not been for him, who knows how many more would have been injured, right? In my eyes, that guy's a hero, right? He's not a hero for having a gun, the same way this other guy is not a monster for having a gun. That was just a tool that they used, right? The meaning behind it and its purpose was completely different. Now, it brings me to the next point. This is just my opinion. There's no causality, right? But there's plenty of correlation. Is that the issue that we have with a lot of mass shooters here, and a lot of these tragedies that occur, isn't guns, right? And people say, well, what do you think it is? Well, for the most part, it's going to be mental illness. For the most part, and again, we know in crime statistics and crime theory, a lot of times, is there are factors that enable and create certain criminals, right? Whether it's of opportunity, like broken window theory, and all these things. He fit and checked off a lot of those things. One, he was ousted by the vast majority of the peers, right? So he had no real deep connection with his community and or his immediate community. Lived with grandma and grandpa, right? Parents, I don't know. I'm not going to assume to know. Were obviously not involved, right? So he didn't necessarily have somebody to discipline him like that. At least not someone he was going to look up to and respect. We have the social media issue where he would go on social media, right? And you see a lot of these people on social media looking for validation from others. And he obviously did not get it. The reasons why, that's a whole other topic, but we're not going to get into it. So he has no deep ties to his community, right? Didn't have his parents. Okay. He was a criminal of opportunity, right? He was a previous criminal and already had instances of animal abuse and other crimes, whether petty or not. He had mentioned what he was going to do, right? There was some planning that went into it. I think what solidified it in his mind for him to go out and do this was the fact that even though for the days prior to the incident, even though he reached out to people and said what he was going to do and told them, showed them pictures of the weapons, right? Showed them all these things and talked about it openly. That even though he did this, nobody cared enough to say anything or to do anything, right? There was even the girl that had the interview, right? One of the girls that he messaged, that interviewed her. And she tried to wash her hands, right? Because we were saying, why didn't she say anything? If he's reaching out to you and telling you exactly what he's going to do, why didn't you tell anything? She said, oh, because I was scared for myself, right? That to me, I'm sorry to say it, but that to me was completely selfish on her part. And he's telling you he's going to go to elementary school and he's going to do these things. And your first thought is, I need to protect myself. And that's fine. Protect yourself. But then she goes on and say, I feel bad for these kids. No, you didn't. Right? Because if you were scared for them, if what you cared for was about them and some tragedy not occurring, you would have said something, but didn't. And many others didn't. Right? They didn't care. They didn't take him seriously. They saw what they saw and brushed them aside. One of the biggest agitators for men is not being seen and not being needed. Right? I think it's like some of the leading causes of depression in a lot of men. It's not being seen and not being needed. In him, it solidified that he wasn't needed and nobody was paying attention. And you see that with a lot of mass shooters. He's not the only one. So we have that common denominator in all of these instances, which is mental health. Right? There are so many other variables and so many things, from weapons used to targets to whatever the case is. But what we know to be true and be fact is they choose victims who cannot defend themselves. They choose places that are going to present the least amount of resistance, gun-free zones, mostly states with the strictest gun laws, right? And they all have some sort, to some levels, some mental disturbance and mental issues with them, whether undiagnosed or not, right? So the issue for me isn't guns. It's mental health, right? And I said this on my Instagram earlier, and I'll be honest, I got a lot of hate for it. I don't understand why. Because me personally, like I said, it's a tragedy, and I'm not denying it. But what I said was, right, there's a reason why people who commit these crimes, right, terrorist acts, whatever the case is, most of them are not women, if any. Right? This is a men's mental health issue. But the problem is, and this is just my personal opinion, right? The problem is that nobody really cares. Right? If you're a guy watching this, you know deep down inside that whatever mental issue you're having, for the most part, you keep that to yourself. You don't talk to that about anyone really, unless you have somebody who's genuinely really close to you and who you know is mostly just going to listen. But for the most part, we know that men's mental health is not that important. A lot of us hope when we go through stuff, we hope that somebody's going to see and just want to lend a helping hand and help you up and guide you and not judge you. A lot of people don't get that. And that quote that I heard states the following: you need to realize that nobody's coming to save you. You need to be your biggest protector, right? You need to be the one that looks out for yourself, because nobody else is gonna do it to the same degree that you're gonna do it for yourself, right? Nobody's coming to save you. That kind of lit a fire under me and said, you know what? That's true. And I accept it. And it took me a long time to accept it, right? But it's reality for lots of men, right? A lot of people may say, oh, I know what you're going through. I know what you're going through. I know what you're going through. But for the most part, right, it's something that we kind of just often put aside, right? My advice to everybody, to men, if you're listening, if you're watching this, right? Hopefully I didn't trigger you by the end of this, but if you're a guy watching this, understand that the reality of the fact, no matter how harsh this sounds, is that you are the disposable sex. You are the replaceable one. We know this. We know this biologically and innately. That's why you will often see those who rush in to protect right? Those who run into the fire, those who run towards gunfire, those who run to help, for the most part, are always going to be the men, right? Especially when it comes to those who you love. The one who's often expected to protect is the man. So we know that we are the disposable sex. You unconsciously know that. My advice to you is become a beast and learn how to control it. Right? There's that quote that I like saying a lot, which is, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in war. Okay? Again, I'll say it, nobody's coming to save you. Do the growth. Seek the help. Right? If you're watching this, you want to talk about anything, you want to have a beer or something, you want to just sit there in silence and do nothing, you're more than welcome to reach out. You know, if it's not me, somebody else. But do it, right? If you see somebody struggling, if you see somebody going through something, if you see something dangerous like that, like all those people did on social media who didn't say anything, if you see something, say something, right? Because all of this that's been going on is 100% preventable, and it has nothing to do with the guns. Okay, so you need to stop following whatever the TV says, right? Because you feel like it's right. Okay, screw how you feel. Be rational. Think about things. Do your own research instead of being spoon-fed these lies, because a wide acceptance of an idea is no proof of its validity, right? And I'll say that again. A wide acceptance of an idea is no proof of its validity. So, I want to leave this open, because I do want to know what you guys think. If there's any disagreement, I'm open to listening, right? I'm not going to assume that I know everything, because I don't. Right? And if I'm wrong, or if I'm just talking with no foundation, let me know. But like I said, I do want to hear what you guys have to say. I know it's a bit of rambling, but hopefully a lot of this stuff makes sense, right? And moving forward, like I said, you reach to learn before you make a rash decision, before you believe everything that's being told, right? Be rational. Take a moment to take that deep breath, to relax, to really think about things, right? Are we talking about a symptom, or are we talking about the cause, right? And the cause here is mental health, specifically men's mental health. Okay, so let me know what you guys think. That's going to be it for this one, and I will see y'all later.